Welcome back. I was doing some yard work outside. Specifically, I was cleaning my pond out. By pond, I mean it's just one of those small plastic tubs that you kind of insert into the ground or kind of do it, in or out. Mine's actually a partial in-ground, above-ground kind of thing. I'll probably put a picture in the end of the video here just to show you what it looks like. At any rate, I was cleaning it out, which entailed draining it and then using my shop vac to suck all the debris out of the bottom. It's in a shady spot, so you tend to get a lot of leaves in there. I try my best to clean out every fall, but it just gets built up after a while and just has to get done. Plus the water gets kind of funky, and it's just a good idea to do it. Unfortunately, I don't have a very big filter in there. I only have one that's big enough to run the fountain that's in there. Theoretically, I should have a second one in there or just one larger pump. But this is the pump for the actual fountain. And since I had it apart, the pond was drained out and everything was clean, and I wanted to start with a clean slate, so I had to completely clean this thing. And it's been in use for probably the last 6 years, I'd say, at least. I've had this for quite a while running back there, and this is the original pump I had with the actual pond. Now it does actually look like it's in really great shape. It's not, though. We'll get into that in a minute. I mean, it'll still run, but it's not going to run the way we want it to, that's for sure. Now, the way these work, there's suction cups on the bottom. This can be, stuck to the side or the bottom of a surface that you want to, pump water out of. And obviously the water sucks in and shoots out the top. Now, this is not the filter itself. The filter is a large box that this would sit in. It's a large plastic box. The wire kind of skates out one side of it. There's these plastic balls that have kind of like an interlocking zigzag pattern within them, and that's the actual filter media. And they just sit in the area all around the box. And then on top of it is a little mat that goes in. It's like a foam mat. It's kind of dense. And then on top of it, which I no longer have for this particular filter, is another mat that's a more denser foam. And then on top of that is a plastic lid that sits in, and there's a hole in the middle that the pipe that isn't here right now would sit into, and then you would connect another pipe to that and you'd have a fountain. And usually the fountain head sits on top, and it either spreads outwards, or depending on I think this actually had a breakaway switch, and then you can use that to put a hose and have a little, maybe like a frog or something sitting on the side of the spawns on the pond spitting water back in. Whatever, that's just neither here nor there. The thing about this one is, though, it has a adjustment in the front. If you close it off like this, it draws less water. If you bring it over here, it draws more water, and that's indicative of a little plus and minus, and the little ramp up here. To get this open, we just slide this apart as I bump the camera. The little adapter piece that's in the top here has actually been cemented in. Normally it just slides in and out, but I did that just to keep it from coming apart because this does get kind of touchy after years of use. In the front here, we can see this is the inlet where the water comes in, and then there's an impeller in the other side here that shoots the water out through the top. This impeller has two little fins at the top and bottom here, and then you can see the adjustment has those same two fins, and all we're doing is we're just adjusting this here, and that's moving those fins in front of these here to choke it out and provide a small opening. Less water comes in, no big deal. Now, to get it further apart, we just flip this up a little bit. This ring comes right out, and then there's a front panel here that comes apart, and then we can remove the impeller system. Now, keep in mind, this is 120 volts, and it goes in water. Now, the way to make this work is it is sealed, and I'm sure it's only sealed to an extent. I mean, if you really want to, you can still get water in this thing, but all these years it's been pretty tight. There's a back cover here which I cannot pop open, but I'm assuming that the wire goes through here and then it's sealed through multiple ways. In this case, we could see it's pretty well sealed. I don't really see any seams in here. Now, inside here there's a coil, and if you look closely, you can see the bottom of here there's an actual little keyhole, and that allows water to get into this hole. Now, this is all sealed in here. You won't be able to see down the back there, but there is a smaller hole, and that's where in a normal motor you would have a bearing. Now, since this does spin in water, there is no bearings, and we'll show you the other side of the plate here. Now, I'm purposely hiding the impeller in my hand because that's going to be the most interesting part. You see there's that hole, and if you look at it closely, it does look a little wonky. you can see it's kind of keyholed out to the side over here and over here to the left and right. We'll rotate that a little better, more so towards the right. And that's because the way this thing spins inside here, you can see here's the magnet and then here's the impeller. It's magnetically attracted to one side, and then you plug this in and that causes the coil to, it excites the coil, the electrons spin, and that causes this magnet to spin. It's pretty simple, and that way there's no direct contact with this impeller, and that keeps this sealed up. However, since there are no bearings on here, these ends kind of just spin freely within this, I guess we'll just call it a sleeve, within the sleeve here. And when that happens, there's friction, and unless there's water in here, you have the possibility for it to wear. Now, they tell you not to obviously run these things out of water, and that's why you wouldn't want to. Unfortunately though, when this thing's run in the pond and it's not routinely maintained, and I mean every 3 months, let's say, it's being run. It doesn't run throughout the winter, but it does. I do try to pull it out of the water and clean it before I put it away for the winter time. So when I start in the spring, it's a fresh motor. But we can look at the back of the shaft here and see, once it focuses, the bottom half of the shaft is the actual thickness of the shaft itself, and then you can see it gets thinner towards the end. That thinness is thinner than it originally was. I don't have the exact specifications to tell you. It wasn't that thick, but it was a little thinner. But we can see it wore pretty good, and it is shiny because it's the type of metal. I'm not sure if it's chromed or what, but it's not plated. It would have wore the plating right off once it got to that thinner side. What's the exciting part of this? The other side. It is needle sharp, and you can also see it's got an actual bend to it. It needs to be straightened out before it can be put back to use. Now, I did actually clean this. This was actually sprayed with a degreaser. It's the actual seam degreaser I'm using for the phonograph repair, and it did a great job of cleaning this. You can see there is some wear in that magnet, but it's not very important. By the way, there's a little like lock mechanism. You see this actually spins, and then when it gets to where that lock mechanism is, it starts to spin, and it does that both ways. So you can see there's like a little like clicky action there. I'm assuming it does that to just get the thing started. But yeah, this is very, very well worn. In fact, this is worn beyond the point it should be. This either needs to be replaced, or the entire motor needs to be replaced. Now, I do intend on replacing the motor itself. I want to add a second one to the actual pond. The cheapest one that they have here in my local big box part stores over here is a $100 kit, and it's basically the same kit, just a newer version of it. Just the same plastic tub, little balls, the actual foam mat, the whole 9 yards. $100. So I would probably put that in one end of the pond, and then I would, if I can, replace this impeller and keep this as my main fountain, pump. What I actually wanted to do at one point was actually get a actual filter for a pool, like one of those inflatable little pools. Usually get those little cheapy filters. I would like to get one of those, and then actually just drill 2 holes in the side of the pond in the back, and do it that way. But I can't really find those things sold separately. It seems like you get to buy them as a kit with the actual pool, and I have no really use for that kind of a pool. So I had to, ditch that effort, because pond filters are actually kind of expensive. I mean, maybe it's because they're black and they're submersible, or I don't really know what the story is, but they tell you not to go in the water, obviously, in case this thing short circuits. You don't want to get zapped. Best thing to do is obviously plug these into a GFCI or some kind of a ground fall or anything like that. Now, what I intend to do is prolong the life of this thing as much as I can before I get a new one, because the pond is completely empty right now, and I want to actually fill it back up. I don't want to run my actual house water to fill it, because that's just kind of wasteful. I do collect rainwater. I actually have a jug outside right underneath the spigot. It's a big 35-gallon jug. Of course, that's not going to put a dent in this thing. It's probably a 1,000-gallon pond. but I want just enough water to fill the bottom to actually submerge the pump unit, and I have a little aerator unit and all that stuff, and just keep it underwater. And then I can turn this thing on and, you know, get it to filter what little water's there. Hasn't been really raining that lot. It's been kind of a dry summer here in New York, but when it does rain, I can direct the gutters of the house to go into that pond too if I want. So I'm going to actually do that so I can get the fill up quickly. Most of the time when you get a good heavy rain, it does actually filter a lot of the water out and you actually see down pretty clearly. I did have fish one time in it. It was just one of those things, somebody gave me a bunch of goldfish and just said, hey, here's some goldfish, whatever. And I ended up throwing them in the pond, and I was feeding them, and then they just didn't come around when I was feeding them. And it turns out it's because I didn't need to feed them. They were eating plenty of food, and a couple of months later they popped up. They were just there. I had no idea they were still alive. I thought something got to them. There's plenty of cats out in my backyard, and they were huge. Usually I get some frogs around towards the end of the summer too, and I haven't seen anything yet. It is about mid-July right now. But once they come around, hopefully they will. At least I'll have some nice clean water. Now, what I was starting to mention was I want to try to prolong the life of this as much as I can until I get the new one, and then I can obviously get the pond filled up all the way. What I'm going to do is actually put some kind of grease in here that's impervious to water. Maybe some Vaseline. That's all I have on hand right now. But just put a big glob of it right at the end here. So when I stick this in and I stick this in, there's just something to give it a little bit of cushioning, I guess you could say. I could also probably maybe I can't really add anything to this. I was thinking about maybe wrapping something around it, but I don't think that's going to work given it's so thin. I mean, that's like needlepoint thin. I could drop this on the floor and it'd probably stick in from the weight of it. But yeah, that's all I really wanted to show. I had this all apart, and I'm kind of filthy right now because from power washing the sides of the pond down and everything, it's kind of sprayed me with crap. Plus I was able to get into the pond, just like climb down into it and clean up the bottom. There was probably about that much muck, just deep, you know, 3-4 inches maybe deep of just pure muck. It's gross. Of course you'll get those in the bottom of each pond. I mean, if it's just natural, but they should, you know, I try to clean them out every once in a while. It hasn't been done in probably 4 years, so at least the water will be nice and see-through for a little while at least, you know. Not that it's a big deal, it's a black pond anyway, it's not like it's a swimming pool, but you know, at least it won't be all mucky with algae and yucky smelling and drawing lots of mosquitoes. That's part of the problem too. Anyway, enough about that. We'll see you guys next video. Thanks for watching.